What if time isn't a river flowing forward, but a cosmic veil hiding secrets only your soul can pierce? Are you ready to remote view the truth behind the ticking clock? Buckle up, superhumans, as we embark on a mind-bending remote viewing journey to unravel the ultimate mystery. What is time? Join us as we remote view time. Remember, you don't have to be a professional remote viewer. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and listen to what we say. And does your body feel light or does it feel tight? Light means it is true to you and your body is singing. And let's peer beyond the veil of clocks and calendars and dive into the top questions that haunt mystics, philosophers, and cosmic explorers. From time slips that defy reality to ancient secrets whispering of cyclical eternities. All right, so we have another remote viewer with us, so I'm not doing this by myself. And I have Christina back with me. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Callie.
And the first question I have is time a physical entity or just a human concept? What do you get, Christina?
I got no, time is not a physical entity, and it's also not a human concept.
I got no as well. And I know that's a kind of a trending question right now. Is it a physical entity? Like it almost has to be either or. But when I remote viewed it, I got that it has structure to it. So when they talk about the fabric of time, that sort of sings with me. What do you get?
Yeah, that feels right. The whole fabric of time feels right.
Yeah, so it's not a physical entity. So it's not necessarily got maybe self-awareness. Maybe it does. I think everything has consciousness according to some gurus. But when they say, is it just a human concept? I feel like time exists beyond humans. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the next question. All right, question number 2. Can time be manipulated or controlled? What did you get, Christina?
I got a no on both of those ideas.
Okay. I did too. And what I got was the information that came through. It's think of time as a river. You can't change the river's flow or direction, but you can move along in a boat and maybe stop and look at different spots along the stream, like upstream being the past and downstream being the future. Hold on, Nellie. That analogy doesn't quite fit, and here's why. Yes, we can use the analogy of a canoe on a river, and that river is the river of time. You've got the past, you've got the present, you've got the future. Where viewing the future is going to be a little bit different than viewing the past, and here's why. Because there are different timelines. And so as you begin to view the future, you might be viewing one timeline. So imagine that river analogy as you're viewing forward has different split offs. So you might have the river in front of you going a piece of it or a part of it going one direction, another straight ahead, and maybe the other one deviates slightly to the other direction. If you can see something, you have the power to change it through attention and intention. Where your attention goes, so does the energy. This is how quantum physics works. By placing your attention and intention, your thoughts and emotions, you will observe the futures. And wherever you direct that attention and intention will begin to collapse the waveform, and that creates the manifestation. So, in a way, you can observe the future, but you might be able to observe different futures or timelines. And that is, where do you place your mind? Where do you place your heart? It comes down to that. All right, so you got no too. It cannot be manipulated or controlled. And that sort of suggests that it's fundamental to nature. Would you say that's right? It's almost like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the building blocks of the universe, kind of.
Oh, yes. I didn't even think about that. But yes, it is like the building. Yes. I'm hearing yes. It's real strong with that. That's a better analogy. All right, let's move on to our next question. And for our third question, are there parallel timelines or alternate realities?
Well, I think these are kind of the same idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, to both. They're kind of one and the same. It's kind of like everything's kind of happening all at once.
Right. Yeah, we actually talked about that on a future question, and we'll deep dive on that. I got yes as well, and I do feel it's one and the same. It's just a different way of asking a question. So parallel timelines would indicate to me that you are in an alternate reality. And I do feel that people can jump in and out of different timelines in reality. Okay.
Yes.
I would say that, was it Cynthia Larson talks about quantum jumping?
Yeah, she does.
Oh, so you know who I'm talking about. Awesome.
Yeah.
But she does definitely talk about jumping timelines.
Yes.
And she calls it quantum jumping.
Yes, she does. I remember.
Yeah. And what I think really stands out, it's been a while, but I think we talk about it as practitioners, QHHT practitioners. I know that I've worked with clients in the past that said, I'm on a different timeline. I'm not even in the same timeline. In fact, I remember my old timeline, which was weird because generally you don't remember the old timeline. You just sense that, wait a minute, that's a little bit different, right?
Right.
But then they remember their old timelines, but then there's a different new timeline they also remember, which is really the power of consciousness, really. But if they're not in that deep theta state, I'm not going to get that answer. So it's almost a different answer when they're in that deep theta state. And so when they come up, they just remember the one timeline that they're currently in. So, except there are exceptions, and I would call that the Mandela effect.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, I remember I wanted a monocle so bad. And I remember Mom saying, "Why do you want a monocle?" And it wasn't until we were playing Monopoly that she could tell that the banker had a monocle. And I'm like, now I'm looking at what happened to Monocle Man. And now you look at the history of Monopoly. The Monopoly Man never had a monocle, but he did. In my childhood, he had one.
Right.
So that's kind of like the Mandela effect, right?
Yes.
So I guess when we're talking about, are there parallel timelines and alternate realities, then that would sort of marry into the Mandela effect.
Yes, I definitely agree with that.
What we have is, why does time feel like it's speeding up? And what I got is time doesn't speed up or slow down, but it feels like a constant. And what changes is our point of view, which our point of view can give us an illusion that time is speeding up or slowing down. It feels like time doesn't change, and it feels like it's actually happening all at once, but it's our perception that causes it to feel like it's flowing in one direction. in the the physical dimension. So I feel like time, even though it can happen all at once, through our point of view, it sort of flows only in one direction in the physical dimension. This is where it got complicated for me, because even though I'm getting that in the remote view, it's still a difficult concept for me.
Well, I think that, yes, this is a tough concept, but I think it really, like you're saying, it really comes down to your focus and perception.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you're really intently focusing on changes, your perception of whether time is going fast or going slow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because everything is happening all at once. So I think that's hard to suss out exactly.
When I went there, I was like, that felt very right. It is happening all at once, but it's such a difficult concept because in this physical dimension, we're only allowed to perceive it flowing in one direction. The question is, why?
Well, wouldn't it be hard for a soul to learn their lessons? If you had to sit and everything was happening all around you, and you couldn't focus, you would have a hell of a time learning your lessons. It would stop.
It'd be like, just going from a standpoint of a teacher giving a test, right? So if everything happens all at once, all the questions come to you and all the answers come to you. What did you learn? Well, I didn't learn anything because all the answers are right there. So
Right.
The process of learning has been removed. So then that makes sense why that information's oh my gosh. That is amazing. That was amazing confirmation. That's why it's linear. It's through the process of understanding the lesson. It's learning. What Dolores Cannon always said, what did you learn?
Yeah.
Because any healing that's done, whether it's mentally or physically, the question always comes down to the same thing. What did you learn? Because it is the learning that creates the healing, mentally or physically, right?
Right.
And I guess if that's the case, then time has to move in a linear sense in physical dimension in order for the process of learning to unfold. Am I making sense or am I rattling?
You're making sense. I am in total agreement, because there's how else are you going to
learn? Right. Before we go any further, let's elevate your journey, personal and cosmic. Meet your must-have companion, the Energy Healing Map at mdhmap.com. Perfect for beginners and pros. It's your guide to clearing trapped emotional energies like ancestral or past life baggage, aligning your vibration with your goals. Imagine releasing old vibes to unlock new skills like remote viewing. With a clear energy field, you'll tap into the unseen. mdhmap.com helps you heal, grow, and explore your universe. Grab your energy healing map today, clear the past energies, and align your vibe, and see what's out there. Visit mdhmap.com now. All right, our question now is, what are time slips and are they real? And I got yes, they are.
Yes, time slips are definitely real.
And how did you feel that out when you were viewing it?
So kind of like, to me, it's like you're going about your regular day, you're doing your thing, and you kind of look over and you see people dressed from clothes in the 1800s, and your brain's going, wait, what? Mm-hmm. And then as soon as you're going, wait, what? Everything flips back to being, regular, like you're used to seeing.
Yes, and that differs from timelines. So the timeline is where I think you have a little bit more control. So if you don't like the way your life is going, right,
Right.
then you can create a shift in your own timeline, because they talk about the different timelines, right? And so, but a timeline is based on every moment is a choice. So as time is in front of us, it is a potential. Whereas a time slip is something like events have already happened, you sort of slip back in time and you're observing something that happened. So it's like you jumped into something that's not natural to you. Whereas timelines maybe are a little bit more natural to you, because it's all these potentials that lay in front of you, and where you're placing your attention and intention will collapse what they call the waveform and create a new the reality that you're focused on. So if you are sitting in your now space and you don't like where you are right now, you have to first come to understand you are in the space that you've already thought and felt, and this is the result. So if you don't want to continue the same type of life or the same type of experiences, then I think what you said earlier, it's like shifting frequencies.
Yeah, you gotta shift yourself up if you want because you're gonna pick what you vibe with.
Right. So there are potentials out there, which are the timelines, and you can stay on the current timeline and stay miserable, or you can choose a different reality by placing your attention and intention on a new timeline. And then that resets you so you can go to a different timeline.
Yeah.
Which occasionally sometimes gives people different memories, which is odd, but it's almost like the Mandela effect.
Yeah, I believe that 100%.
Okay, and just to sum up, before we make this too long, I pulled up Cynthia Sue Larson and kind of got just kind of an idea of what her take on it. And I don't want to put words in her mouth, so I encourage people to buy her book or books and sort of tease it out. But this is my understanding. I've got my notes up here I'll take a look at. Time slips are fleeting, localized experiences of a different time within one's current reality, while timeline shifts involve a broader, lasting transition to a parallel reality with a different sequence of events. So, you as a teacher, how does that sum up for you?
I think that's perfect because I think it makes perfectly clear, what a time slip is, that it's a brief thing. It's not something that's lasting very long at all. Sometimes you have physical evidence, sometimes you don't, except in your memory. You might remember something differently. Then, timeline they're more concrete in my way of thinking, and you can, depending on your frequency, you can shift from one to another.
Right, and shifting the frequencies basically, for those who may be new to this, in order to shift your frequency, you have to shift your emotion. So the first comes the thought that creates the emotion. So happy thoughts need to create happy emotions, and that creates, and placing your intention creates the manifestation. So if you're thinking negative, or if you're thinking positive thoughts and thinking or feeling negative emotions, you sort of cancel that out, and so you sort of feel like you're stuck. All right, Christina, this is one of my favorites because it really asked the same question that Dolores Cannon was asking for over 40 years. Can we access the past or future through consciousness? And not only Dolores Cannon, but Edgar Cayce and many other gurus. And I think you know how I feel about it. So what do you say?
I wholeheartedly agree. Yes, through consciousness, you can access the past or the future, for sure.
And any dimension, as it turns out.
Yeah.
So I think Dolores Cannon actually wrote several books that sort of addressed convoluted universe, might be one of them, because there's different dimensions. That's where people have their pre-birth memories. So that's actually in a different dimension. There are people who feel they are star seeds. That I think probably shocked Dolores Cannon the most. And for those of you who don't know what star seeds are, those are people that Dolores would put into the theta state and ask questions about, where's your source? Where do you come from? Just sort of probing questions of that nature. And they would come from a different dimension or even a different galaxy, but they're here for the expansion, or some people call it the Great Awakening, the end of one era into, what is it, the Age of Aquarius. They're here for that, for the whole expansion. And it didn't matter. So the star seeds were a part of that. And they said the Earthlings need help, and they sent out a call, and they brought these people from other planets. So when she talks about people are having these experiences, what was interesting to her specifically was that she could be any place in the world, and she hadn't written about the star seeds up to this point, and yet people were giving her the same story. We are from, and then they would say where they were from, and they were here for the mass consciousness expansion that was going to take place. Would you like to add anything to that? I kind of went rogue on you, Christina. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I definitely, that book that Dolores wrote about that was Three Waves of Volunteers.
Oh, yes.
And that's where she put all that information together. And her whole body of work, really, if you look at it, that's proof that you can go back in time. I mean, she spoke with Nostradamus. She figured out what the lost years of Jesus through past life, through her work, through her research, and that's proof that you can go back and you could see future things as well.
And what was interesting is that she would work with people from around the world that were telling her the same story, and these people didn't know each other at all. I think the story, for people who don't know her story when she's talking to Nostradamus, that was actually pretty hilarious. And I remember when she talked about that, she was like, he would ask, well, how do you spell that? So she actually sort of stumbled upon it. So she was working with somebody, and they were a student of Nostradamus. And then it was almost as if Nostradamus, through the student, figured out that the student was communicating with somebody in the future. And so he was talking to that student and asking questions, basically of Dolores Cannon. And then they would say, well, how do you spell that? And I remember that look on Dolores Cannon's face. It was so funny. It's like, wait a minute. Am I giving you, Nostradamus, the future events that you're predicting? I mean, that's how convoluted this universe is, right? I mean, that's why I love this work. I mean, when you get into consciousness, I really feel that all answers are there. Thoughts?
Everything is within. All answers.
Yep. It's all mental. All the gurus have said that from the very beginning. It's all within you. All right, Christina, to sum up, I feel like we've already addressed this question, but in a different way. And the next question that is a hot topic for a lot of people, is time a simulation? And I get, no, it's not a simulation.
Absolutely not a simulation at all.
So, yeah, it's kind of like that building blocks. I feel like every time I ask that question, I see like cinder blocks in a wall, or we call it CBS construction. I just see blocks of construction.
Yeah, because time is part of the fabric of the universe.
Right. So, yeah, it's all part of it. Like gravity's a part of it. So it all sort of works together. So, all right, those were our questions for remote viewing time. And it really comes down to time happens all at once in the physical dimension. And the brain is here to filter out the noise, to make us perceive linear time. And this helps the soul to focus on its lessons for expansion. How does that sit with you?
I agree with this 100%. I mean, if we didn't have the brain focusing our attention, it would be next to impossible to actually learn the lesson that you're here to learn. So if you need that focus in order to be able to learn that lesson.
But also, like Dolores Cannon said, we also need forgetfulness too, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like if you didn't have the forgetfulness, it would be like having all the answers to the test.
And what did you learn? You haven't learned anything.
Didn't learn anything.
Right.
So you have to have the forgetfulness in order to be able to learn the lessons.
So time in the third physical dimension is a place of great focus in order to help our soul to expand.
Yes.
Or anybody else for that matter. I guess it doesn't, not limited to humans. It's just anything with a point of consciousness or self-awareness, I guess. Self-awareness, maybe.
Yeah.
So, Christina, do you have any last statements on what you think about your remote view on time?
I really enjoyed remote viewing time. It's a fascinating subject, and this whole time slip thing really blew my mind. I've really enjoyed this, but it also kind of confirmed, the importance of time on a soul's journey and how helpful it actually really is.
Yeah, I think that put it in a different perspective for me too. When you talk, you can view it from Dolores Cannon's point of view or a scientist's point of view, but it doesn't feel real until you say, no, wait a minute, why am I experiencing this? And I think it's that question that made me give it a whole different perception. I'm like, now for me, it makes sense. How about you?
Yeah, I have a better understanding and even appreciation for time now.
Right. We are going to wrap up our remote view of time. Thank you for watching. And up next, we're going to remote view what happened to Cleopatra. It's not what you think. All right. See you next time.